The power of our nation's heritage is infused into the very charter of the Armor Museum. This is the result of what
we will start our program with the Pledge of Allegiance led by Family Court Judge Eileen Daly-Sapricone.
Please all rise, hand over heart. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, please look up overhead. There are aircraft in formation on this Veterans Day weekend. Is there ours. At least one of them is. So in any event, I have the pleasure of now first welcoming you all. We are deeply appreciative for you spending your Sunday afternoon here at the museum on this Veterans Day weekend. I have now the distinct pleasure of introducing the museum's Director of Community Affairs, Kevin Carroll.
Thank you, Gary, and again, I thank all you folks for coming today. Welcome to the Museum of American Armor. Today, on the eve of Veterans Day, when our nation pays tribute to those who have defended our nation, our museum is dedicating three iconic tanks that represent three specific conflict periods during the 20th century. Conflicts that were defining moments in our nation's history. We do so because our mission is not only to present these armored vehicles in context, but also to ensure that each visitor understands that young Americans went courageously into harm's way to defend our freedom. Over time here at the museum, we've been asked for permission to use these tanks as backdrops for commercial photo shoots, using them to sell products, fashion, and even to promote personalities. But we have consistently declined to do so, as we explained to the production companies, because Americans were often wounded and certainly died in these tanks. We honor those sacrifices, and we believe that it would be inappropriate to allow them to be used for such a frivolous purpose. Today, we are proud to present for a permanent display here at the museum a very, very unique M4 Sherman tank from World War II, a Korean War vintage M47, and a Cold War M60 tank used in the 60s and 70s. Each one can tell a story of courage, valor, and sacrifice. Each one represents a chapter of our history that needs to be retold, especially now, when our nation's history is being relegated to a secondary study in the classroom. And that is why the museum's founder, Mr. Lawrence Kadish, sees the Museum of American Armor as a classroom. Other folks may see museum visitors here in our building, but Mr. Kadish sees new students of history coming through these very same doors. It remains Mr. Kadish's singular purpose to educate, to inspire, and to motivate a new generation so that they understand and embrace our nation's history. That is one of the core missions of a museum that he founded and now sustains through programs such as this. As we are here on the eve of Veterans Day, it is wholly fitting and appropriate for us to pause and reflect in prayer on the legacy of freedom provided to us by those who have served. If you would, please welcome Rabbi Harvey Abramowitz as he gives our invocation.
Good morning. In anticipation of being here today, I decided to study what we call the Torah of tanks, because in my youth, I did not know too much about tanks. I was at some point, a young officer, airborne.
Airborne.
Oh, airborne.
All the way.
I had an occasion to meet a colleague not many years ago who was in tanks. in armor. And in sitting and speaking the language that veterans only speak to each other, those that have seen the elephant, those people, it's like using different lexicons in your trades. And so you open up a little bit more because you've shared something. And I told him my feeling was I never wanted to be buttoned up inside one of his tin cans. And he smiled, went over to my shirt and said, yeah, but the skin of my tank's a lot thicker than your shirt. The real thing is, in war, all of it's required. All of the different specialties, all of the different acts that people perform. And it doesn't only mean that you're firing a weapon. You could be cooking, you could be driving something to deliver stuff. Not everybody has to do the same job. We need so many different kinds of jobs done. And in thinking about an invocation for today, I must tell you that over the last 40 or more years, due to extensive counseling that I do with veterans, with police, I've come to an awareness that on this day, as we honor the sacrifices made by so many, and that we still have young people in places all around the world that they couldn't find on a map, but when the call came out to go, they rucked up and they went, and they're still there doing what it is that they have to do. But my experience tells me that when you've accrued a lot of life's experience, 30 or 40 years after your service, a lot of the veterans I've spoken to voice the same thought. When they think about their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren. So in their name, I want to offer this prayer and I'll explain it. Dear God, we're here to express gratitude for all those who have served in our nation's defense, those who have made the ultimate sacrifice, and those who are in the field right now. All of them have written a check made out to the United States of America for a sum up to and including their own lives. Every single one of them deserves our honor and our respect. But as I've learned, one of the greatest things that seems to be a theme that runs through the folks of my age that have served a long time ago is the thought and the hope that our grandchildren and our great-grandchildren never have to go through what we went through. And so God, in their honor, and by their request as well as ours, please help us find a way to make this place a peaceful world where nations will not need to lift up arms against other nations. There's got to be a better way. This we pray in everybody's name. Amen.
So we are here dedicating 3 unique, historic, iconic vehicles, but there's one gentleman here who said to me, he is a Hellcat driver, and anybody in the military will tell you that those who served in specific vehicles are incredibly loyal to the vehicle they served in. So if it's a Sherman, it's an M47, it's an M60, whatever. Rich Gruber, a Hellcat driver from World War II. And the other reason why he's here is because he wants to make sure we're taking care of his Hellcat. Yes, sir, we are.
Thank you, Rich, and thank you, Gary, and thank you, Rabbi. Nassau County Executive Laura Curran is no casual student of history. She came to her calling as a public servant, already well steeped in the legacy of freedom forged by our military. Since taking office, Laura has led efforts to strengthen benefits for those veterans and to lead programs such as these, so that a new generation understands the enormous debt that we owe America's armed forces. Please welcome the County Executive, Ms. Laura Curran.
Thank you very much, Kevin. I am full of gratitude to Mr. Kadish and to Gary Louie and the whole team and the volunteers of this beautiful museum right here in our county. This is a real jewel in our crown because it helps to educate young people who, as somebody pointed out, might not be learning in school what our proud military history is. I'm also full of gratitude to those who have served, who have fought for our country throughout the centuries, those who are serving now, those who will serve in the future, to help preserve and protect this very precious democracy of ours. So if you look at history, if you look around the world right now, you see that the freedom of religion, the right to vote, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of the press are quite rare. And it's not a natural, it's not a given. It is hard fought and hard won by our veterans. So I am incredibly full of gratitude for their service, for your service. And let's remember the veterans who live right here in Nassau County. We have a very high population of veterans, upwards of 55,000 just in our county. And our County Veteran Services Agency is working incredibly hard to connect with them, to make sure they get the benefits that they're due. There's an army, no pun intended, of volunteers taking them to appointments, getting them where they need to go. We have a Veterans Court that prioritizes treatment, and just last month we started 1 day a month, every third Thursday, our Traffic Parking and Violations Agency, TIPVA. That day is dedicated to veterans so they can take care of what they have to take care of as quickly and as easily as possible. So in Nassau County, we are so proud of our veterans. We are so proud of our wonderful democracy, and let us never, ever, ever take our precious freedoms for granted. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Curran. Some of you know this is we just celebrated the 5th anniversary of operation of the museum here. But while this museum was merely a construction site filled with mud, steel beams, and the vision of its founder, Mr. Lawrence Kadish, Eileen Daly Sapricone could be found here helping veterans tour the grounds. Today, as a family court judge, she seeks to protect the families of Nassau County facing hard times and difficult choices. But her commitment to the museum and those it seeks to honor has never changed. Please welcome Judge Eileen Daly Sapricone.
Thank you. Good afternoon. The power of our nation's heritage is infused into the very charter of the Armor Museum. This is the result of the personal commitment of Lawrence and Susie Kadish. They have long recognized that Americans' history cannot be allowed to become a minor footnote in a classroom discussion. Since it's opened, the museum has welcomed thousands of students, teachers, and families. It reflects our core mission to ensure that each visitor leaves with a powerful understanding of what previous generations have endured to preserve, protect, and defend our nation. One cannot overstate the efforts of Lawrence and Susie to challenge all of us, presenting the museum as a means to connect with our shared heritage and thereby appreciate the greatness of this country: freedom, democracy, liberty. And perhaps those are the names we should apply to these 3 new tanks now on permanent display. Thank you for coming here today to join us. God bless these United States, and God bless our veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge. So, on behalf of our volunteers, our board of directors here, our museum founder and president, Mr. Lawrence Kadish, permit me to welcome you to a new chapter in the life of this museum, and that's the dedication of these 3 tanks. An historic tank trio that will remind each and every American that citizen soldiers defended their future, their liberties, and their nation. We're going to wind up. We're going to ask the county executive to toll the bell.
Let's bring this up. Mr. Gruber, come join us as well.
The Revolutionary War. The War of 1812. The Civil War. The Spanish-American War. World War I. World War II. The Korean War. The Cold War. The Vietnam War. The Gulf War. And the War on Terror.
This ceremony has been concluded. We deeply appreciate you being here today on this Veterans Day weekend. If you know a vet, please make it a point to thank them personally. Ladies and gentlemen, the M48 tank is about to roll as part of our concluding tribute. So we'll ask you to step closer to the podium, away from the curb, where the county executive goes. Thank you again. Stand by, put your cameras up, and we will conclude with the rolling of the M48 patent. Thank you again, ladies and gentlemen. Our M48 makes its way past this program and part of into American history. We'll be taking up a donation for the curb cut. It's always interesting to see it operate, to see how much it's actually going to cost us.